Hi, my name is Stephen McGee and I'm the author of Health Forensics, and we're here to take a little look at my back garden. Now, people who have been following my YouTube channel will recognize this garden as a garden I've been studying for radio frequency deformities, and I want you to take a little look at this climbing ivy. It's Arizona grapevine. And you'll notice that the wall is very, very dense with this ivy. Now, all these plants were planted at the same time along this wall. And right around here, it stops. Now, the vines go all the way to the end of the wall. But you'll see that right around here, for some reason, they're not growing. And I can tell you that what this is aligned with is out there. Behind those trees is a cell phone tower. And if the trees weren't there, we would be looking at the cell phone tower. And as we move back along the wall, you see the growth changes in the vines and becomes dense. And that's because we've moved out of the view of the cell phone tower. So it's well known today amongst electromagnetic radiation researchers that a direct view of a cell phone tower is far more biologically toxic than a blocked view of a cell phone tower. And we see that in these vines. Okay, so we're going to come over here. We're going to have a little look at the rest of the plants around the garden. So you can see that we've got great growth on this bush. This one's been pruned, so that's growing good. But here's another retarded plant. So you look at this plant, it's got extensive retardation on its growth on the top. And I complained about a transmitter on the West cell phone tower that was taken out of service in 2014, I believe. And if you look down here, this is the way the plant is supposed to grow. So this is new growth that has come up since that transmitter was taken out of service. And you can see all this new growth coming up from the base is the way it is supposed to grow. And it's not supposed to have this small growth that you're seeing on the top, which is old growth. So this is another bush that's been pruned down. Now, this is the same oleander as planted at the same time as the deformed one that we just looked at, and it's almost up to the roof of the house. So you can see this one over here with the deformity. It's only grown about half that distance. So that's the difference between your plant being in a radio frequency hotspot and one that is not in a radio frequency hotspot. Okay, this one's growing well, it's almost up to the roof, no problems there. And here's another radio frequency retarded oleander, and this one's a little bit worse than the last one. We've got extensive small growth coming up on the top of the bush. And this is quite typical of what you see in radio frequency retarded plants, that the growth is stunted. And you can see down here, this is how the leaves are supposed to grow. It's very long leaves. And for some reason the base is putting up these long leaves, but it's got shorter leaves up on the top like the rest of the plant. Okay, let's carry on. You see, again, this was an oleander that was planted at the same time. All these oleanders went in at the same time. That one's pretty much up to the roof. Another bush, another oleander, it's on its way up to the roof. No problems with that one. And this is another retarded oleander. Again, you got the retarded, very small growth coming up on this oleander. And down at the base you can kind of see how it's supposed to grow normally, but then it retards up at the top. So this one is always not furred very well in this area, and we're now in the direct view of the cell phone tower, which is directly behind those trees about 2,300 feet away. So it doesn't affect all the plants the same way. As you can see, this one is growing well, and this one's retarded. This one just hasn't really thrived in this location, and the same for this tree. This tree is just not thriving. It's always struggled, and I'm going to put my hand next to this tree to give you a gauge on size. So that's the tree trunk. I can grab my hand right around it. I'm going to have a look at some other Palo Verde trees that are in the garden. They were actually planted after this one, and they're doing much better. So there's another oleander. This one is actually thriving. So it shows you the difference, that this is actually the same age and out of the same stock, was planted at the same time as this one. So this one is just sitting there retarded. So the conclusion I've come to over the years of studying this garden is that there's little hot spots of radio frequency retardation throughout the garden, and you can see it in the vines. If you look down, it's very clear on the vines where the radio frequency retardation starts. Very clear line of demarcation right there in the center of the image. So let's carry on. So this area was failing to thrive. Then I complained about the west antenna tower. A transmitter went missing. Nobody will tell me what that transmitter was. There is another transmitter out on the west antenna tower behind those trees, and it has a top set of transmitters, and it has a center set of transmitters that was removed. So there is still transmissions coming from out in that direction. And there was something about that middle antenna system that they removed that was causing extensive retardation to occur in this plant. And as you can see today, it's actually growing very well. It's actually starting to exceed the height of the wall behind it. And while the transmitter was in service, this plant would not exhibit vertical growth. It grew very, very low to the ground and refused to grow vertically. And I've seen that happen in a lot of my plants. So let's keep on going. So I put fruit trees in the garden, and believe it or not, this fruit tree is a few years old, maybe like 5 years old, and it's never really done anything. It's a feature of my garden is that I cannot get fruit trees to grow in it. And I attribute that to the radio frequency exposures, as it seems to really affect fruit trees. And here's one here, and it's been in for many years, but it's just failed to grow vertically. It's just largely about the same size as what it was when I bought it. So it's alive, it just doesn't thrive, and it's very much a retarded fruit tree. So let's keep going. So these are oleanders that I planted about a year ago, and they're all along the back wall. And I also put these in at the same time. And the idea was to see if I could map out the hot spots along this wall. But it's too early yet to actually get any results, but what I can say is the plants are actually growing. I don't see retardation occurring in them right now. And it's fall, we're back into frosts, and the plants are starting to lose the leaves, so that's normal. There's another one that I put in as part of an experiment. You can see another experiment behind it. So the idea of those fluorescent tubes was to detect the electrostatic field, and if they're in an electrostatic field, they will start to illuminate down at their base. I've never seen them illuminate. So there's no evidence of an electrostatic field at this location, and we're very far away from power lines at this house. There's another plant that I put in, and again here, this is all part of the experiment that is underway to map out how plants grow along the back wall of the property. So this plant here, this one was failing to thrive. The transmitter was removed, and now it is thriving. It's actually exceeding the height of the wall. And down here you'll see there's a dead plant right there. Now this is the location where every plant I put in, no matter what the variety was, would die in this location. And since that transmitter was removed, this plant has actually started to thrive. It's the best I've actually seen it grow. It's actually in the process of dying. Then the transmitter was taken out of service, and now it's come back to life and actually put quite a bit of vertical growth up. And this is where the growth gets really vigorous on my garden, on this side of the house, or on the north side of the house. You can see that we've got a very dense hedge growing down here. Now I want to take you across to see some other plants that we've passed by. Now this is a tree, it's a mesquite tree, and while that transmitter was in service out there to the west of my home, this tree would only grow to about 2 foot tall. So you can see it's actually now exceeding the height of the wall, and it's probably about 6 foot tall. So it's probably about 4 foot of growth in just over a year since that transmitter was removed. So that's the difference between being in a toxic radio wave field and having that toxic radio wave field removed. Now, we've got a couple of trees here. These are Palo Verdes. They were planted at the same time. And this is the hoop skirt experiment. And you can see that this has a hoop skirt which is now being converted into a crinoline with these metal wires. So this tree is being grown with that hoop skirt on it, which was later converted into the crinoline. And it's showing very vigorous growth, and probably the best growing tree in the garden. And you can see that I can't actually get my hand around it. It's so big, the trunk. It's a very, very mature tree. And what seems to have happened is this hoop skirt appears to have accelerated the development of the tree. And it's actually the tallest tree in my back garden. It's actually one of the youngest. Now this is its twin. They were purchased from the same shop at the same time. This was actually taller, but you'll notice that this one's not wearing a hoop skirt. And it seems like the hoop skirt actually puts a lot of radio frequency into the tree and stimulates its growth, and this one didn't get its growth stimulated by the hoop skirt. You can see that I can actually touch my fingers around this one. So this is what the tree is looking like. So it's definitely not grown as well as its twin. So this tree is far more mature, even though they're the same age. So that's what radio frequencies do to biological organisms when you feed them in through an antenna system, which is what this tree is wearing. Okay, this one was struggling and is now growing much better. Put up a lot of vertical growth since the antenna systems were removed over on the west side of the house. And the same here. This has been extensively pruned to keep it down, but you can see that there's some shoots coming up vertically, and this bush should probably be about twice the height if I wasn't pruning it to keep it below the level of the window. So there's another interesting plant down here. So you see we've got a hedge. This is a very, very well developed hedge. And down here is a very interesting plant. So this plant I couldn't actually get it to grow. Everything that I put in this location was dying until I put up an electromagnetic screen on the wall behind it. And we're very, very close to the utility equipment in this location. So it appears that the emissions out of the utility equipment was retarding this plant. And it's now 6 foot tall. And everything that died in this location prior to putting in that screening. So that was my garden. I hope you enjoyed the tour. Thank you.